Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight for another insightful edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. And this particular one is interesting because it's one in 3 episodes, and this is the 3rd episode in this special session with Joel Omeke, the HR godfather himself. Again, please watch the last 2 editions in your own professional best interest. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, the topic we are looking at is maximizing talent potential, harnessing internal mobility for organizational success. Again, even though it's the godfather, we're not going to assume that everyone on this call knows him. So because of your sake, we'll quickly read out a brief of his very rich and robust profile. Joel Omeke is the lead consultant and founder for P4P Limited, Institute for Professional Excellence. He has outstandingly built competence in helping individuals and companies achieve their best potentials. He's a seasoned business strategist, people development, and HR practitioner with over 22 years deep experience covering generalist, specialist, and lead roles in the banking, insurance, engineering, telecom services, and consulting sectors. He led the learning and performance group of Workforce Management Center. He was the group head of HR and corporate services at Savitech Engineering. He headed organizational and employee development at Sterling Bank PLC and was the head of performance management in Unity Bank with responsibility for career development and manpower planning. Joel holds a dual Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics and Statistics from the University of Lagos. He has an MBA coursework from Business School, Netherlands. He's a project management professional, change management specialist, and a professional member of various national and international institutes and associations, including SHRM, HRCI, PMI, NIM, ISM, LDNI, and HR Network Africa. He's currently a doctoral degree student in business administration. He is passionate about professional excellence in business growth, organizational development, and HR transformation. He has developed several best-in-class solutions, systems, and models in HR, finance, business transformation, and learning and development. He currently serves on the board of Oxesis Management School, an entrepreneurship management and leadership development institute. Also, Bosworth Analytics, a business intelligence and analytics firm, CA Microfinance, and O Mobile Multimedia, a telecoms multimedia company. Joel runs several mentoring and coaching programs for professionals and business leaders. He has assisted business leaders in Nigeria, Namibia, Ghana, Ivory Coast, and South Africa, to mention a few, to transform their careers and organizations. He is also a regular volunteer of capacity building initiatives for Schools for Junior Achievers International and Teachers Development Initiative. He develops profit models, business models, plans, and growth for integrated and complex businesses requiring deal structuring and various combinations, including mergers and acquisition. Some of his experiences largely cuts across consulting, facilitation, and project management. And I'll just pick a few. For example, in consulting, he has handled things around change management, strategic repositioning, enterprise value management, turnaround business recovery, HR transformation projects, and so on and so forth. Around facilitation also, he has handled things around organizational development and design, project and program management, leadership development, strategic planning and team building, retreat facilitation, among others. With respect to some projects, he has, for example, worked on the career management framework CBN 2020 to 2022, staff and HR audit for CFA's Group 2020, first academic curriculum development, First Bank 2011. Also, it's interesting to note he has also supported many SMEs in various initiatives. And some of the things he has done include HR strategy and service delivery, business startup growth and profit modeling, HR transformation, leadership alignment and development, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, with joy and energy, I hand over virtual control to the godfather, who is also a very generous and liberal soul, Joel Omeke. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Yemi. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I thought since I've handled this session before, maybe we'll just go straight to the discussion. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you all on this call. It's an honor once again to share with us, to be able to engage and discuss in such a way to support the HR profession and advance the career of individuals who are seeking for growth within the HR space. The session today we want to look at is how do we maximize talents within our organization? How do we harness the potential that we have within the organization using the concept of mobility, internal mobility? Most times people look outside when they are looking for talent within the organization. But we shall be diving into internal mobility as a strategic approach for growing organizations. And while we have this conversation, I encourage you to think about yourself. How mobile have you been internally within your organization? If you have worked in the same organization for the past 2 to 3 years, as the case is, what different roles have you handled over that time? Have you been moved around? Have you engaged in different responsibilities within the organization, as the case is? Because issue of mobility is beyond just the organization. Ideally, it starts with the employee first, desiring to be mobile before the organization can engage further at that point in time. But of course, there are unwilling partners, individuals who receive an opportunity to be mobile, to move around, but they choose not to, or they decline that particular mobility. Now, why are we discussing internal mobility? Why is this important within the framework of talent management today? There are 2 angles to internal mobility and why it matters a lot today. It is not just a trend that we are seeing on social media, on LinkedIn, on the HR platforms. It is a necessity from a strategic point of view, right? And we shall explore why it matters both to the organization and to the employees within the organization. First, let's look at why this matters to the organization. For the organization, internal mobility is very, very critical because it helps us to reduce our recruitment costs. If you have a vacancy internally and you use an internal staff, another employee within the organization to fill those particular vacancies, you cut the cost of hiring and vetting someone from outside to join the organization. It also boosts innovation because then you're using an employee who already understands the system and most probably is armed with a few ideas of how to make certain adjustments, whatever it is you're deploying into at that point in time. It also helps us to share knowledge and information across board in various areas. And then it facilitates succession planning. It helps us to build the talent pipeline for future leadership roles in the organization. Because as you move people around from one role to another role, they begin to gather bonds. They gather understanding of the various organizations, the various departments, the various units. And then the day you make them a leader within the organization, they are well grounded to be able to support the organization at that point in time. But how do employees benefit from a mobility program? When you move employees around, how do those employees benefit from that particular thing? For one thing, moving employees within the organization empowers them with career development opportunities. Because for each place you move an employee to, the tendency is that you're going to develop the employee, you're going to train him, you're going to build him in order to be competent, fully competent in the area he has been deployed to. So that's an example of development, career development for that particular employee. Imagine if the employee is sitting down behind a conversation and they are asking, what have you done? What are you experiencing? Is that employee who you move around is much more richer, is much more broader, and is able to defend any role or position he's seeking for at that point also. Then it helps the employee to build new skills, skill set that he didn't have earlier from the role he's working on. Take a look at HR as an example. If you have an employee that has been working in HR for the past, say, 7 years, and within that 7 years, he has been in recruitment, tendency is that you will say he has become a recruitment specialist. But again, imagine another employee who also has been in HR and also for 7 years, but within this particular 7 years has been moved from recruitment to training, from training to performance management. So the employee who has moved across these 3 units is much more generalist in nature and tends to understand more across board the organization and is tending towards becoming a HR manager down the line at that point in time. And then also, it makes the employee feel valued within the organization. It makes him feel appreciated. Oh, the organization loves me. The organization is happy with what I'm doing at this point in time. This is why internal mobility matters. But how do we then show, how do we demonstrate that internal mobility can help with ensuring that the organization is successful? In our discussion this evening, I crave your indulgence. For the next 45 minutes or 1 hour, we'll be speaking and engaging. Please pay attention to a couple of things that you may find useful. Like, what is the business case for internal mobility? Assuming you want to practice internal mobility in your organization today, what would you say? What is the English you're going to speak to your management in order to implement internal mobility? And if you're going to foster a culture of movement or mobility in the organization, how are you going to do it? How do you streamline your internal movement processes to ensure that it is seamless as employees move around in the organization? Are there risks? Are there challenges? How can you proactively address this? And then what are possible case studies, best practices, and strategies you can use to be able to deploy this? So we shall look at these 5 areas, right? And then be able to engage in them and find out the best way to ensure that you have an internal mobility program within your organization that helps you to drive growth and ensure that your organization continues to succeed. So let's start with the first one, building a business case for internal mobility. Now, when it comes to internal mobility, what is the business case? What is it that we are going to say is the reason why we are pushing for or advocating for internal mobility? Well, let's explore a couple of business cases that will help us to look at why this is necessary. We'll look at the challenges that are faced by mid-sized organizations and see what significant benefits there are in. I know the audience we're speaking to at this point in time come from various organizations, but my case studies and discussions is targeted at mid-sized organizations as the cases. You can adapt it to a smaller size organization. You can scale what we are discussing into a large size organization as the case is. So what are some of the challenges when it comes to internal mobility? Why organizations should consider it? For one thing, the cost of recruitment is rising high, and high. External hiring is very expensive. Think about it. How much does it cost to replace an employee that resigns from an organization? How much does it cost? Please respond. How much do you think it costs? Would you say it costs 50% of their annual salary? Is that how much it costs to replace an employee that resigns? Or would you say it costs 100% of their annual salary? What will you say? Or would you say it is about 150% of their annual salary? Now, I want you to choose. Is it 200% of their annual salary? Please choose A, B, C, or D. Which one would you say is the cost of replacing an employee that leaves an organization? Please share on the chat box. What will you say? What's the cost? 150% we see. Thank you. What's the cost? Yes, share more. Share, yes. How much does it cost to replace employees who leave an organization? 50%, 100%, 150%, 200%. Can we get a few more response? Thank you. Okay, so we'll have a 50%, half of their annual salary as the cost of replacement. Yes, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Interestingly, the figures are beyond those particular figures, right? The cost of replacing an employee that leaves, exactly. In some cases, in fact, in most cases, it costs almost 200% their annual salaries to replace them. On the average, if you're using an external consultant to do a recruitment process, you most probably be paying the consultant an average of, let's say, 10% of the annual salary already. So you set aside 10% at that point in time. There are other costs involved in trying to replace someone who has left. There's lost opportunity, right? There is learning curve while the new staff joins the organization and is trying to learn. There are resources, tools, and assets that you purchase for the new employee to settle down with. There is him trying to fit into the team and the team trying to understand him at that point in time. All of this leads to some measure of cost within the organization. So the statistic we have shows that the cost of replacing a salaried employee can be twice their annual salary. This is why we're advocating for internal mobility, because it helps you to tap into your existing talents, reduce recruitment costs, and also your onboarding costs at that point in time. I remember when we had an ED for a particular organization, and that particular ED, we had to pay him his 1 year salary upfront as his joining fee, his sign-up fee, before he can join that particular organization. And it's not like we are going to get the money back from him, so to speak. It's not like, okay, and when he joins, he will pay back. It's not a loan. It's the amount of money that must be paid for him to carry the ID card of that particular organization. You'll agree with him that he must be a serious talent for us to take him on at that point in time. So imagine he has not even joined yet, but we paid 1 year salary upfront. That's 100% gone. Before we start discussing all that cost attendant to him at that time. So really, there's also war for talent. Serious war for talent. Each employee you're looking for or each candidate you're speaking to, you're interviewing, is most probably interviewing at several organizations at that point in time, or is being spoken to by a couple of organizations also at that time. So the landscape, the talent landscape, is very fiercely competitive. A lot of organizations are vying and fighting for the talent that you are looking for. That is why sometimes when you make a job offer to a candidate and the candidate turns it down and says he has a better offer somewhere else, and that with whatever you're offering him at that time. This is why it's important for us to examine what we are offering, why we are offering it at that point. So if you use your internal candidate, if you replace employees with your internal candidate, you will reduce the expense. You will reduce the time it takes for you to replace a role where somebody has moved out of that particular role. And internal mobility is just the best case for you to be able to implement this. Another reason, another business case for which we push for internal mobility is that it drives innovation through knowledge sharing. Because as you move employees from one role to the other role, the organizational knowledge is being shared across the whole board. The way it is done in HR, the way it's done in finance, the way it's done in IT. As those employees move around, our tacit knowledge in the organization is being spread across the institution very well. And then we are able to use that in order to predict further the success rate of the organization. Now, when employees move within the organization, they share knowledge and expertise across various departments, right? And this cross-pollination ensures that we have a culture of innovation within the environment. Another reason why it is beneficial for us to consider pursuing internal mobility within the organization is that it helps us to bridge the succession gap. Because if you look at currently, we have a lot of younger ones within the organization who are not very strong, who are not very matured for senior roles within the organization. And what we hear some organizations do regularly is that once they have a vacancy at senior levels, they go outside, they headhunt, they poach, and get candidates from outside. And each of those things that we do shoot ourselves in the foot. Because at the end of the day, our team members don't get the opportunity to rise up to those positions. This is why some of them eventually resign and leave us. So if we can pay attention to addressing the succession planning gap through internal mobility, we can encourage our team members more. We'll identify future leaders that can address this particular challenge. And it will help us to develop their talent and also help us to build and fill our talent pipeline and prepare high potential employees for future roles within the organization. Interestingly, I don't know, you will have noticed that there are some managers, when you engage them, when you're trying to hire for them, they say, look, I need an employee or I need a team member that can hit the ground running. That once he joins, he's flowing, he's moving immediately at that point in time. He's delivering results at that point. I don't know if you have seen a manager like that who says he does not have time to train anybody or to build anybody. I need team members that can hit the ground running at that point in time. We refer to those kind of managers as net importer of talent. They like to import talent. They don't like to develop and grow talent. But if you're going to do internal mobility, you need managers that are net exporters of talent. Managers who are willing to build talent and distribute that talent across the organization. In fact, a measure of good managerial skill is the ability to develop talent. So if a manager is not able to build his team members, in that case, he is not competent to play that role as much as possible. Again, if you have an internal mobility program in place, it kind of helps the employees to build their future and also helps the organization to boost employee engagement. It makes employees to ensure that they are motivated, they have a sense of belonging, and then within the organization, they are highly excited in order to deliver results. Usually, organizations that promote from within, grow from within, usually have a higher level of engagement than organizations that usually hire from outside. Because usually those who are left inside the organization, after you've hired from outside, they usually lose energy. They are not excited, and they are not willing to push themselves in order to deliver as much as possible for the organization. So finally, the best thing to do when you do this is that it helps you to retain our employees. And retention is a competitive advantage. According to SHRM, organizations that do or practice internal mobility, they usually have less turnover rate. In fact, they have 15% less turnover rate. This is the average turnover rate of most organizations, especially the ones that have low internal mobility. But the ones who have high internal mobility, the attrition rate is less than 10%, and which is fantastic. Usually we propose and encourage organizations to have between 5 to 8% turnover rates. Anything higher than that, you should pay attention to it because it's going to affect your culture and affect a lot of things within the organization at that time. So it helps you when you have an internal mobility program to ensure that you retain people very well in the organization. Quick summary, what have we said? In a nutshell, the business case for internal mobility is that 1, it reduces cost. 2, it boosts knowledge sharing and innovation within the organization. 3, it strengthens our leadership pipeline, and our succession plan is easier to run and administer at that point in time. And then finally, it increases engagement and ultimately leads to retention of our employees in the organization. So if you're not practicing internal mobility, use this business case we have made to develop a document and send it to your executive management and let them look into it and approve that we should increase the number of internal mobility we have within the organization than always looking outside at that time. Now, how do we foster a culture of internal mobility within our organization? How do we ensure that we embrace these concepts in order as a key for success in the organization? We're going to explore some strategies that can help us to achieve this in order to ensure that there's sufficient opportunity in this particular area in our organization. 1, we must have an open door policy. It must not be shrouded in secrecy. Sometimes who gets to get which job when the vacancy is declared within the organization? You notice that people start lobbying. There is lobbying inside the organization. Lobbying, please, I need this job. I want this particular position. And the employees are lobbying. Eventually, someone gets the job. But what was the criteria of choosing that person? And we did not choose the other person, as the case is. So if there is no transparency in your internal mobility program, it will fail. So you need clear information about career paths. Employees need it, about the available opportunities and internal job openings. It's not when there's a vacancy, we don't hear about it. We just hear that one staff has been redeployed from this position to another position. And I remembered once upon a time within one of the banks where I worked in, when the head of strategy position was open in that particular organization, then I was head of performance management and head of training in that particular organization. And I went to my ED and I told my ED, sir, this position, head of strategy, I've been preparing myself for it. I like to fill in that particular position. And my ED told me back in those days that, look, I need you in HR more than the bank needs you in strategy department. And I felt the ED was a little bit selfish. He was thinking about my role and my contribution for him within HR, other than my career aspiration to the Department of Strategy, as the case may be. So you must ensure that there's some measure of transparency within the organization in order to be able to achieve as much as possible. The second thing is communication. You must have regular conversations with your employees on what is going on within the organization. Discuss career aspirations. Managers should be talking to their employees. Check in with your employees regularly. There's an interview, a popular interview when we're discussing engagement, stay interview. So managers should practice stay interview regularly. Engage with their team members. Find out the areas that they need skills to be developed and where they have potentials within the organization. And if there are opportunities around there, encourage them to apply for those particular opportunities in the organization. So regular conversations is very, very key to help you in this area. Then there's also investing in developments and also in career workshops. I remember one of the projects we did in Abuja. At the end of that particular project, we were supposed to run a career fair for the organization so that the team members within the organization can understand what the organization has put in place. And the team members in the organization can also see what options are available to them in charting their career as the case is. We too should run various career workshops. Is either you're running a leadership training program or a leadership development program, or you're running management development program for people at various levels. You can run an, what is it called? Emerging manager program for people who are recently promoted from supervisory roles to managerial roles. Or you can run a management development program for people who have been managers, who became managers and they've been working in that position. You can also run senior management development program for your senior management team that you should be considering for senior roles within the organization. Then there are technical skills, technical academies, technical schools that you should put in place. Depending on the industry you are in, there are certain technical skills that are core to you and your industry at that point in time. If you're in banking, in that case, operations, credits, right? And relationship management will be key for you at that point in time. So you put a program in place to lead your team members through it, as the case is. If you're in telecoms, there are programs that are peculiar to your technical teams. You also put that in place, as the case is. Then you have regular communication workshops where you help team members to build their skills, hone their skills. So when a vacancy appears in the organization, you have sufficient candidates internally that are ready to fill those particular positions. So go ahead, offer career development workshops to equip your employees with the skills and knowledge they need for this internal program that we are talking about. So if you consider that, you'll notice that it is doable. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations have adopted an ad hoc approach to learning and development. And so you see most employees these days are now taking over or taking ownership of their own development. And when they do that, it is not always 100% in alignment with the opportunities that exist within that organization. So we need to get structured, our HR team members in this particular area, so we can help and guide our organization in this area so that they can advance more. Now, how about empowering employees? Through mentoring program, coaching programs, as the case is. So you can pair employees up. You can pair a low-level employee or a junior employee to a senior-level employee, as the case is. You can pair a manager with an executive director in the organization so that the executive director can build the manager to rise up to senior leadership roles within the organization. You can pair an officer with an assistant manager, a deputy manager, or a manager in the organization so that that officer can rise up to senior officer roles and assistant managerial roles within the organization. So mentorship programs connect experienced employees with high potential individuals. Mentors can provide guidance, support, and insights into the potential career paths within the organization because mentors are well informed about what is going on within the organization at that point in time. So you should consider it as a way in order to foster a culture of mobility in the organization. Finally, collaboration is key. Is it possible for you to, when you have projects running, HR has a project running, can we get team members from different departments? Somebody from finance, someone from IT, someone from control, someone from risk management, someone from operations, so that they can join in that HR project. By so doing, you expose these individuals on a HR project into HR opportunities. Same thing also. If you have a finance project, an IT project, an operations project, can you get members of the team from various areas, including HR? So when they work in those particular teams, they are exposed further into the opportunities and how those particular departments work. So when opportunities come, they can gravitate towards it. Cross-functional projects expose employees to different departmental skill sets so that they can work on those particular areas. It broadens their horizon and can spark interest in internal mobility programs targeted at those particular departments. So what have we shared at this point in time? In summary, talking about building a culture of mobility, we have said you must be transparent. You must have regular career conversations with your team members, managers, and employees. We've also said that you should develop various workshops that can help to build team members in those particular areas. Pair experienced employees with other employees so that they can share experience with them in mentorship programs. And then ensure that when you have projects, you put together a cross-functional team in order to address it. If you implement these strategies, you will be able to nurture a culture that values internal mobility and empowers your employees to explore their full potential within your organization. So let's chat. Let's have a chat, quick chat, right? Of these things we've mentioned here, transparency, regular career conversations, development workshops, mentoring programs, and cross-functional collaborations. Which ones do your organizations currently implement? Which ones are you currently implementing? So let me make this easier for you, what I'm going to do. Let me just, on the charts, change this to numbered bullets. So which of these is your organization currently practicing? Okay, I see transparency. Thank you. So in case if you want to, thank you, yes. Thank you, beautiful. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which of them are you currently practicing? Oh, nice, nice. There's nice. Wow. Okay, so there's collaboration. There's, collaboration. There's transparency. Good. You have a mentorship program in place. There's development workshops, various areas. Beautiful, beautiful. Cross-functional collaboration. Yes, good. So it appears that most of us favor the practice of cross-functional collaboration. That's good. That's good. I mean, it exposes people to opportunities within those particular departments. Okay, trust. Yes, trust and transparency. All right, because once we have confidence in the system and the way the system is running, team members will want to appreciate and work with us in that area. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so now the third point that we did mention on this particular thing is how do we streamline our internal mobility program? Now, if you now put an internal mobility program in place, how do you streamline it to ensure that it works very well? Thank you very much. Constant knowledge sharing sessions. So long as those knowledge sharing sessions involve all the departments or as many departments as possible. If it is knowledge sharing of HR department only, it is not enough. If it is knowledge sharing of IT or finance or operations alone, it's not enough. They should have cross-functional team members joining those particular sessions. Okay, so now that we have a culture of mobility within the organization, the next thing we want to look at is how do we streamline our processes so that the process is easy to follow so our team members can walk through it. Now, whatever process you adopt, it's important that you make it seamless, all right? You must make your processes easier for employees to explore. When employees ask questions, what is the next step? It must be clear what is going on within the organization. It should not be shrouded in some kind of policy that is only HR that understands our mobility program. So if you want to understand how mobility works in the organization, go and talk to HR. Your mobility program should be clear and simple, such that even line managers can have conversations around mobility with their team members within the organization at that time. One of the platforms that you can use for internal mobility is an internal job board. An internal job board. A user-friendly internal job board is very crucial. So sometimes you send email, sometimes we put it on WhatsApp, all right, as the case is. Those platforms are not enough, so to speak. If you have a dedicated job board, maybe an internal website in your organization that employees check in regularly on, then it is easier for them to see which vacancies exist in which departments and what are the qualifications or requirements for those particular things. And they can quickly apply at that point in time. If you don't have an internal job board, although it is the best practice, then use an email platform or sign up. There are a lot of online web platforms that allow organizations to collaborate, and then you can share information regularly within everybody, within the organization. You can send it as a broadcast, an announcement that every employee receives at that point in time. So ensure it is easy anyway, if you have one, easy to access, easy to navigate, and easy for them to search relevant opportunities on those particular job boards. Then encourage self-nomination. Empower your employees to nominate themselves. Let them on their own say, I want to apply for this particular position. Put my name in it. Please include me in those that will be interviewed or discussed or considered with at that point in time. Encourage them to showcase their skills when they are invited during that particular process so that they can be primed for that position. When consultants are sending candidates to organizations, they will call the candidate and explain the candidate, this is the organization, this is the position, this is how you should behave, this is how you behave. Go there and represent yourself very well. HR and line managers should do the same thing. When employees say, I am interested in this position, engage that particular employee, school him on the requirement properly, and help the person to prepare in order to showcase his skill at that time so he can gain that particular opportunity as the case is. They have very clear transfer policies. If an employee is going to be transferred from one department to another department, what is the policy of transfer? Typically, the department that wants the employee will make a request, will call the line manager or talk to the HR. Sometimes we even see them talking to the employee himself, and then they will not talk to the line manager. Or sometimes they abandon the line manager completely. They talk to the employee, talk to HR, and the HR will write to the line manager, dear manager, your employee has been moved from you. Please make sure that the policies for transfers are clear. The procedures are very clear, and show respect for the line manager who already owns that particular talent. Don't treat him as if it doesn't matter. You can just take his employees at any point in time and transfer them at that point. That is why some of them reject and fight those particular transfers. So if possible, have a flow chart in your policy manual that shows very clearly the steps involved in applying for internal positions. Include timelines and decision-making processes in those particular things once you display it to your employees. So use technology, again, for your talent management systems already. If you have a platform already, all well and good, it's easy for you to use that to move your employees around. But beyond the job boards, right, and those particular platforms, communication is key. Internal boards or job boards are just one piece of the puzzle. You need to utilize multiple communication channels like emails, intranets, or social media, right, in order to announce available internal opportunities and encourage applications from your team members within the organization. Because you don't know which platform an employee is active on. There are some employees that don't check their email for 1 week, especially employees whose email is not an active platform for communication. So they only check that email when you tell them that, look, I have sent you an email, go and check your email. That's when they will check their email. While there are some employees that throughout the whole day, they will not check their WhatsApp, especially those who are not WhatsApp friendly. Some employees do not go to social media at all. So make sure you utilize multiple platforms in being able to reach your employees as much as possible within your organization. So tell me, what is common in your own organization? What platforms do you use for communication when you're communicating with employees? What are the platforms that you use within your own organization? Please share on the chat box. What is peculiar for you? What do we use? Which ones has your organizations found very useful? What platforms do you find useful for your own organization? Emails, yes, thank you. WhatsApp, yes. Some organizations have WhatsApp groups, all right? Email and WhatsApp, social media, Slack, thank you. Slack, yes. So it appears WhatsApp and email are winning the game, as the case is, right? So beautiful. The beauty of WhatsApp is that it's an instant messaging platform. Immediately you send it, everybody sees it at that point in time, except for those who have muted notifications on their WhatsApp. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. So various announcements where you have a large crowd or the entire audience available at that point in time. Telegram, interesting, interesting. That's a new one. Some organizations feel that Telegram is for a large crowd when you're doing something very, very large, when you need up to 1,000 to 5,000 members joining. So you go to Telegram. Okay, that's nice. Beautiful. Intranet. Thanks a lot. Thanks. So by way of summary, what have we said here? We say when you're streamlining your movement procedures in your organization, try and use some job boards, right? Encourage employees to nominate themselves. Ensure that the policies are also very clear. And be proactive with your communication platform so that everybody knows exactly what we are pushing for or vying for in the organization at that time. Now, addressing challenges, number 4. There are challenges when it comes to internal mobility. So with all these things I'm saying, it's not as easy as I have said it. There are some challenges that you need to deal with in order for you to have a smooth run of your program. One of the challenges is knowledge gap. Employees may lack the skills that are required for the new roles. So it's not just to apply. They may apply, but they don't have the skills. They don't have the competence for that particular job. This is the major reason why a lot of organizations go outside to hire, because their team members internally does not have the competence for that particular job. So knowledge gaps can be addressed through targeted skills development. Why don't you run specific training programs for them in order to build it? The question is, how long will it take to bridge that gap? Can the gap be bridged in 1 month? If it can be bridged in 1 month or 2 months, it makes sense for you to redeploy an employee than for you to hire a new employee entirely at the cost we have indicated earlier. If it's going to cost you 200,000, 500,000 to train an employee and keep him ready, it is more affordable than spending up to 4, 5, 6 million naira as a new salary for an employee that is joining the organization at that point in time. So consider that as a way to deal with it. The second challenge that we notice when it comes to internal mobility is line managers. Line managers are usually very resistant. Most managers don't want to lose their employees, like the case I gave of myself in the bank at that point in time, where the ED refused to let me go to another department because he wanted me to continue supporting the HR department as the case is. So managers may be very hesitant. They don't want to lose, especially if the person you want to redeploy is a performer, is a high potential individual within his department or her department. She will simply say, no way. And sometimes they will even tell you, do you know how long it took me to find this person? Do you know what I have invested to train and build him to bring him up to this level? Don't destabilize my team. So whatever the manager's concern, please sit down with the manager and address those particular concerns. The manager may be worried about drop in productivity. The manager may be worried about not finding another replacement for the candidate in question, the employee you're trying to take. So identify the benefits of that internal mobility to the manager and help the person understand that we need to have team continuity, knowledge retention, and also a high-performing workforce at that point. I'm sure if you have very good conversations with the managers, you may be able to win the manager over at that point in time. In some organizations, we take the employee by executive fiat. You go upstairs when the manager says no, he's not releasing the person. You go upstairs and meet him MD or ED or GM and tell him to please, can you sign the redeployment letter? And the GM or ED endorses, and instantly you move the person. Already you have created an enmity between you and that particular manager. And that particular employee will not feel happy because the manager will not like him anymore. It will look as if he was part of the people that masterminded the whole process. Please engage the manager and address that particular issues as much as possible. Other solutions you can use is communication and collaboration. Make sure you have open communication between HR and the managers and encourage collaboration. That even though the employee is being moved, sometimes the employee might have moved, but he may have one leg in the department in question. He's still supporting the department he's moving from at that point. So ensure that managers understand the benefits of what we're doing so that they can support the process and be able to work with us to get things done properly at that point in time, right? Then you might also have departmental silos. Departments are working in silos. You need to break down those silos because silos hinder internal movement. If you have silo, then nobody knows what is going on. Encourage cross-functional collaboration so that we can ensure that we work on joint projects together. And this will help you to expose your employees to different assignments, different departments, different projects and assignments that is going on so that they can get involved and be able to address those particular concerns. And how do you address this particular challenge? Some of the challenges we've mentioned so far, one of the things you can do to address them is you should anticipate the challenge. Don't think that managers will not reject or push back. Upfront, if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. So anticipate those particular challenges, all right? Anticipate the fact that team members do not have the skill. So go ahead and put a development program in place to support that particular transfer. Usually sometimes in the financial institutions, when we want to move, beef up the marketing team, we might go to the operations department across all the branches of the bank. And then we draw two staff from each branch. So if the organization has about 100 branches as an example, and we withdraw two staff from there, we've instantly gained 200 staff. Those 200 staff will now run training programs. We'll call it a transition program, transitioning to marketing program, or transitioning to relationship management program. And we'll put them in class for a couple of days and school them on the culture of marketing, the skills of marketing, and all those things, and then get them ready for that particular job. And instantly, they'll be willing to do the job as much as possible, right? So consider that as a way to be able to address it. Be proactive with the way you do these things, and then manage to ensure that you have open communication with both managers, department heads, so that they can approve and let your team members go. Now, our last conversation here is learning from the best. There are a couple of case studies, although I've shared most of them. while I was discussing. But I mean, there are a couple of other case studies that we should look into that will help us to understand how mid-sized organizations are dealing with mobility issues within their organization. The first one will say that mobility drives innovation. It helps you to ensure that you have innovative team members within the organization. I remember a marketing team that used internal mobility in order to foster cross-departmental collaboration. Okay? They got employees with diverse skill sets and got them together to work on various projects, various products, and various launches at that point in time. So everybody contributed their own at that time. What did they do? They moved some of their team members to operations, moved some people, some of their marketing team members to operations. Some people in R&D, they moved them to marketing. Some people in operations, they moved them to sales. And some HR people will also move to sales. I don't know if there's any HR person here that will not mind being moved to sales in his own current organization as the case is. So I can go and learn what is happening in sales and marketing. Would you like to be moved to sales? Let me see. Any one of us here like to work in sales? A lot of no. HR, leave a little, right? Please leave your comfort zone. Go outside and see what's happening. You can come back and continue your HR. Just a couple of months and you come back. Okay, some have done it before. Beautiful, all right. Now, what are some of the actionable insights we learned from this case study? Encourage cross-functional project work. Let team members from various departments come together and work together. Break down departmental barriers. There's nothing like I belong to this department, I belong to this department. Let's work on projects together, right? So we can have a culture of knowledge sharing at that point. Our second case study here is that of building a talent pipeline. And in this case, a mid-sized technology company prioritized internal mobility for their leadership positions in the organization. They invested in leadership development programs, in management development programs, and they created a strong talent pipeline. And they reduced their reliance on external hiring. They were getting talent from that internal pipeline that they have at that point in time. We still have a couple of chats. Okay, people are still raving around not wanting to be moved to sales. Okay, beautiful. Okay, there are some who don't mind being moved. Beautiful. And then there's someone, okay, fantastic. A business partnering role delved into sales as the case is at that point. Fantastic. So that's an example of an opportunity that can build our skills and make us stronger than we are. So what do we learn from this tech company that invested in internal mobility? First, you must identify future leaders with high potential. So you must come up with a criteria for identifying your high potential within your organization. Secondly, you must offer development programs that are targeted at building skill gaps that you identify amongst your high potential. So it is not enough to just run a generic management development program. Rather, you must bring your team members together and be able to run programs that will be able to deal with some of those particular things that they need to learn and then achieve results at that point. Then equip your employees for leadership roles within the organization. So sometimes we run this particular program that is called Ascent Management Program, where we help managers to ascend on their journey towards leadership. And for each organization, the organization determines what skills, and we have about 30 managerial skills. Then the organization identifies which of the skills they want to run for their team members at that point in time. And every month, we focus on one or two of those skills. For 2 hours to 4 hours each month, we engage with the managers either virtually or physically. And then the managers will go and practice those particular skills. Next month, again, we'll take up another one. By the end of 12 months, the organization will have covered between 12 and 24 of those skills, and their managers become very strong and able to deal on those particular areas. The third case study we have here is on enhancing employee engagement through mobility. So this particular manufacturing organization implemented transparency in their internal mobility program, especially with respect to their job board and career development workshops. And it led to increased engagement and reduced turnover at that point in time. It made the employees feel excited that they belong to such an environment. So what is our takeaway from these case studies? We need cross-functional collaboration. We need to invest in the training of our team members as much as possible, right? By incorporating these key takeaways, you can empower your employees in order for them to achieve significant benefits for your organization. Remember, you need to also prioritize communication and transparency. So summarizing what we have covered so far in our conversation so far, you need to unleash the potential of your team members through the power of internal mobility. We have covered how internal mobility can be a game changer in various organizations for talent management. And it empowers your employees, strengthens the organization, and unlocks opportunities for development and advancement for the team members. Primarily, we have mentioned 4 key takeaways for you. 1, foster a culture of mobility and transparency. 2, streamline internal movements, the processes that you have within the organization, so you can gain the best you can at that point in time. Then 3, address challenges proactively, right, within the organization, and then invest in your employees as much as possible. If we do this, most probably you'll have a good internal mobility program as much as possible in the organization. Thank you very much. This is where we shall stop. So we shall take questions and feedback.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, quickly, if you have any questions for our facilitator for tonight, feedback, comments, contribution, want to share your experience, I'll appreciate if you could raise your hands and we could give you the floor quickly. And for those of us who are voice shy and you prefer to type, please swiftly type your questions, comments, or contributions so that we can take it.
Let me take one of the questions on the chat box. So the question is saying that a challenge with the internal mobility program is that HR leaders is for them to get the younger workforce of today to see bridging skills gap as key rather than giving excuses. What it means is that the younger generation don't want to go to training because they give excuses for that. Well, usually, another thing we've discovered is the way we run training for the younger generation is not exciting. It's not interesting.
It's 8 o'clock.
We are still running training the way we ran training for the last generation, for our senior managers as cases. Training has changed. Development has changed. These people want gamification, excitement, engagement. They want bite-sized knowledge. They don't want 2 weeks training. They don't want 1 week training. So I think the HR mentorship group should try and run a program or run a webinar to show us some of the modern ways in which we can engage this young generation. And I agree with you. The younger generations are not interested in the way training is running, as the case is. Thank you. I think
Thank you so much. Faith, you have the floor. You can unmute, ma'am. Hello, Faith. You have the opportunity to unmute.
Okay, good evening, sir. Good evening for the very insightful session. So my question is, how as HR leaders or as individuals now, because my former workplace, there is like a job rotation policy. So you can be moved between cross-functional departments, right, within the organization. How do we help people align internal mobility to their career goals? Or how do we help people? I don't know how best to put my question, but if you get what I'm saying, say I'm in finance and I'm moved to, say, sales or are moved to HR, and there's that sort of rotation policy that moves people within an organization into different roles. So how do we now help individuals, in such scenarios, balance their career plans? Yeah, that's my question.
So hidden inside your question are perhaps two things. One, how do we ensure that those redeployments and rotations work very well? Two, for the employees who are being rotated, how do we ensure that those rotations fit into their personal career goals and career aspirations, as the case is? For the first one, sometimes organizations do those rotations from a principle of not allowing people to be too tired on what they are doing so that they can experience other areas. Some other organizations do it as a way to encourage people to learn various things within the organization. However, HR can be very, very deliberate and mindful to ensure that they put a career management framework in place that looks at all the job families. You must come up with the job families that are within your organization and how each of those particular roles fit into those particular job families. So when you're moving and rotating employees, they are rotated around job families that can help them to continue to build their career in the paths that are necessary for them. So you don't have too extraneous transfer of people. You transfer someone from HR to IT. The gap is too much, right? The transition, the knowledge gap, the developmental gap may be too heavy, as the case is. So you must make sure that the transitions are easier for employees to rotate in those areas. Then secondly, how do we ensure that employees are helped so that those transfers align with their personal career aspirations? That's why we say throughout this conversation, have discussions with the employee. Managers should sit down with the employees and understand their aspirations, where they are going to, and then look at the various career paths and possible paths within the organization that we can place and plug those employees on. Then as opportunities come, those employees can be moved and rotated into that particular role. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Godfather, for that. Some questions have dropped in the chat box. Adeleke Oshiba just says, what is the best duration for rotating a staff?
I cannot say 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Usually the duration depends on a lot of variables. One, the role that the person is coming to do. How long does it take to build competence or develop the individual for that role? A role that takes a long time to build competence, maybe 6 months, it will be unfair on the organization that in 6 months, after you finish developing the person, you now transfer him out again in another 6 months. So usually look at the person should have been able to settle into that role, learn the role, perform very well in that particular role. So look at what is required in order to achieve that performance. So most times what we see, 1 year, 2 years, as the case may be, before the person is well grounded in that area, then it can be redeployed from that role. Any redeployment that is too short will create confusion for the team members that you brought the person to plus the person you're moving around is also confused about his career. He doesn't know what is going on. So ensure that it is long enough, as the case is, case by case basis.
Fantastic. Oluwasegun says, can mentoring programs be cross-functional? For example, an employee currently in sales department who is being mentored by a manager in operations department.
Yes, yes, yes. Mentoring is not about technical skills. It is coaching that is technical skills. So in coaching, perhaps coaching can happen within the same department or within the same job family. But when it comes to mentoring, mentoring focuses on career. Mentoring focuses on advancement and progression. It has nothing to do with specific department or specific functional skill, as the case is. So anybody who is experienced can share his career journey with you and guide the individual on his own career journey also.
Thank you so much. A comment here I'll read from Kende. She says here, in my organization, we do a talent review session where employees complete a survey about their personality, job choice, strengths and weakness, and HR sits with the line to discuss and analyze this. Then we get a timeline when the employee can be deployed. Do you want to react to these comments?
I will just say fantastic activity. It's a good initiative as the case is, all right? And then beyond when the employee will be deployed, let's also look at what development the employees need before being deployed to the next role. Fantastic arrangement. Well done.
Okay. Any more questions before we call it a wrap? We still have a few minutes. If you want to broaden the questions up a little, feel free to do so tonight. Any question either on this very specific topic or what we've done in the last 2 weeks or HR in general. Anytime beyond this, your invoice will come. I assure you of that. And rightfully so.
All right, while we're waiting for the questions to come in, let me just share a few additional resources and videos in case if you're interested in taking this conversation further. So I have listed here about 5 YouTube videos, right, that speaks on internal mobility. Some are case studies, some are principles and practices, some are strategies. So take your time when you get this material to visit these particular videos and listen to them. Watch how these organizations have deployed internal mobility and how they've gotten their own best practices, how they've been able to implement it in their own organization. See what you can learn and adopt, all right? As I always recommend, copy, adjust it, and then implement in your own organization. And then you will continue to grow in those particular area. Thank you very much.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, sir, for this amazing 3-part journey session. This has been magnanimous, generous. We appreciate your largeness of heart. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Omeke's contacts are reflecting on the screen right now. You may want to write it down, his phone number, his emails, and of course, you can easily search him out online, or if you reach out to me too, I can easily connect you with him just in case something comes up. Please, I'd like to say here that consultants are accessible and they're available. Don't, for example, say, oh, my company is small, won't be able to afford the service of a consultant. Speak first with Mr. Joel Omeke. You know, have a meeting, it can be virtual, it can be a phone call, please. And the value a consultant of Mr. Joel Omeke's status and capacity to your organization, to your business, will far outweigh whatever investments. And I use that word carefully, is an investment. Please, you can always scale up value for your organization. Again, sir, I've seen several comments on the chat box, all stating their appreciation for the quality of the presentation. Thank you so much for how you have responded expertly to all the questions, and thank you very much again for your time. We do not take this for granted. Let me just say that you'll be back, sir. It's just a matter of time. At your earliest convenience, you already gave us a topic, or for example, around new ways to, do trainings for Gen Z. And the likes. Again, reach out to me, sir, anytime you want us to do something together. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to also thank you very sincerely for joining this session tonight. It's free knowledge, but it's also not free. You committed your data, your time. You probably had to excuse yourself from your family, your TV. I too do not take this for granted. The best way you can pay us back at HR Mentorship, pay Mr. Joel Omeke back, pay Oluyemi Adeosun back, is by paying it forward. All these things you have learned today and you have learned previously, show it at work. Let people say the quality of your output is exponentially increasing. That is what you can do for us. And anybody within your own space that you can help build their knowledge, mentor, coach, as the case may be, please don't hesitate to do it. Like I always say, there's no way you learn that you will end up to earn. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a beautiful night, courtesy of Joel Omeke, the Godfather. Good night, sir. And good night, everyone. One love.
Good night.